Right as everyone smiled for a group photo, my wife sneered, "Move. Your face is ruining everything." I stepped out of frame, walked straight to my car, and drove away without a word. Hours later, I got a message. "She's still crying because you made her look bad. But before I begin, please like and subscribe to the channel. And we'd love to hear which part of the world are you joining us from. Let us know." Now, let's dive into today's story. The July sun hung heavy over Clearwater Lake, turning the water into a mirror of white gold light. Harry Voss stood at the edge of the gathering, a paper cup of lemonade warming in his palm. The ice had melted 20 minutes ago, but he hadn't taken a sip. He just needed something to hold. Around him, the Voss family reunion unfolded with its usual choreography. Aunts fussed over potato salad. Uncles debated the Vikings' upcoming season with the kind of passion reserved for things that didn't actually matter. Children shrieked as they chased each other across the grass, their voices sharp against the low murmur of adult conversation. Harry had learned to navigate these gatherings the way a sailor learns to read dangerous waters. Stay quiet. Smile when expected. Don't offer opinions unless directly asked, and even then, keep them mild. Take up as little space as possible. It had taken him years to perfect this disappearing act. His wife, Brenda, stood 15 feet away, her laughter ringing out over the crowd. She was telling a story to his mother and two of his cousins, her hands moving in animated gestures. Whatever she was saying had them captivated. Brenda had always been good at that, commanding a room, drawing eyes, making people lean in. Harry used to love that about her. Now it just made him tired. "All right, everyone." Uncle Pete's voice boomed across the lawn. "Time for the family photo. Let's get set up by the dock." The crowd began to migrate toward the weathered wooden dock that stretched out over the lake. Harry moved with them, careful to position himself toward the back. He'd learned that lesson too. The back meant less visibility, less chance of doing something wrong. The photographer, a young woman Pete had hired from town, directed them into position. Taller people in back, shorter people in front, children kneeling on the dock itself. The usual arrangement. Harry stood in the third row, between his brother David and a cousin whose name he could never quite remember. He held the paper cup against his chest, then realized how ridiculous that would look and set it down on the grass behind him. "Okay, on three," the photographer called out, raising her camera. "1, 2. That was when Brenda materialized beside him. She'd been standing with his mother in the second row, but she must have noticed him in her peripheral vision. Her smile never wavered as she turned her head, just barely, toward him. To anyone watching, she looked pleasant, engaged, a devoted wife, making sure everyone was in the right place. Her voice dropped to a whisper that only he could hear. "Step back." Harry's stomach tightened. The familiar ice water feeling spread through his chest. "You're messing up the picture," she added, still smiling. "Your face. It's blocking Aunt Linda." It wasn't anger in her tone. That would have been easier to process. It was irritation. Clinical. Matter of fact. The way someone might point out a stain on a shirt or a crooked picture frame. She'd been doing this for years now. These little corrections. At first, Harry had tried to defend himself. To explain. To suggest that maybe, sometimes, he wasn't actually doing anything wrong. But Brenda had a gift for making him doubt his own perception. She'd sigh, roll her eyes, tell him he was being too sensitive, tell him she was just trying to help, tell him that if he'd just listened for once, things would go so much smoother. Eventually, he'd stopped defending himself. He'd started believing her. Harry took a step backward out of the frame. The photographer didn't notice. She was focused on her camera settings, adjusting the aperture to account for the bright sunlight. His mother didn't notice. She was fixing his nephew's collar. David didn't notice. He was checking his phone. Brenda noticed, of course. She gave a small nod, satisfied, and returned her attention to the camera, her smile brightening. And something inside Harry, something that had been bending for 15 years, finally broke. Not with a snap, not with rage or tears or any of the dramatic reactions he'd imagined during sleepless nights. It broke the way old rope breaks when the last fiber gives way. Quietly, inevitably, he didn't step back into the frame. Instead, he kept walking, past the photographer, Past the picnic tables loaded with food his mother had spent all morning preparing. Past his brothers, who were laughing at something on David's phone. Past Brenda's parents, who sat in lawn chairs with plates balanced on their laps. No one called after him. No one asked where he was going. He walked across the grass, his shoes crunching on gravel as he reached the parking area. His truck sat in the third row, a faded blue Ford that Brenda had always hated. Too old, too practical, too much like him. Harry pulled the keys from his pocket and climbed in. The engine turned over with its familiar rumble. He put it in reverse, backed out carefully, then shifted into drive. As he pulled on a main road, he glanced in the rearview mirror. The dock was still visible through the trees. He could see the cluster of people, all facing the camera. Someone must have taken his place by now. The picture would be complete. Perfect. Better without him. Harry drove south, away from Clearwater Lake. The familiar landmarks passed in a blur. The gas station where he and Brenda used to stop for coffee, the antique shop his mother loved, the stretch of forest where he'd learned to fish as a boy. He expected rage to hit him any second, or grief, some kind of emotional eruption that matched the magnitude of what he'd just done. Instead, he felt something quieter. Relief. The words settled into his chest like a warm stone. Relief. After 15 years of marriage, of trying to be smaller, quieter, less of an inconvenience, he felt relief. When had it started? Not on their wedding day. That had been genuine happiness, the kind that made his hands shake as he said his vows. Not even in the first year, when they were still learning each other's rhythms. It had been gradual. A joke here, a correction there, little adjustments to his behavior that Brenda framed as helpful suggestions. You're talking too much. Let someone else have the floor. Don't order the fish. You always complain about it later. Can you not wear that shirt? It makes you look older than you are. Each comment had seemed reasonable in isolation. She was just trying to help him be better, wasn't she? To smooth his rough edges, to make him more presentable. But the comments had multiplied, spread, metastasized. Soon she was correcting him mid-sentence at parties, apologizing to friends on his behalf for things he didn't think required apologies, telling stories that made him the punchline. Harmless stories, she insisted, just funny little anecdotes that everyone enjoyed. He'd started believing the narrative she was building, that he was difficult, too sensitive, socially awkward in ways he couldn't quite perceive, but that everyone else could see clearly. He'd started apologizing for existing. At first, he thought marriage meant compromise, give and take, meeting in the middle. Later, he realized it meant endurance. And today, standing on that dock with 40 people around him, he'd realized something else. It didn't have to mean anything at all. He could just leave. The thought was so simple it almost made him laugh. He could just leave. Stop enduring. Stop compromising. Stop apologizing for taking up space in a photograph at his own family reunion. The highway stretched ahead, empty except for a few scattered cars. Harry rolled down the window. Warm July air rushed in, carrying the scent of pine and hot asphalt. He turned on the radio, then turned it off again. He wanted quiet. For the first time in years, he wanted to hear his own thoughts without someone else's voice overlaying them. By the time he reached the city limits, the sun had started its descent toward the horizon. He pulled into a fast food restaurant. Not one of the places Brenda liked, but a simple burger joint where the food was hot and the staff didn't care if he sat alone. He ordered at the counter, carried his tray to a booth by the window, and ate slowly. The burger tasted better than it should have. Maybe because no one was watching him eat. No one was commenting on his choices or suggesting he should have ordered something else. His phone buzzed. Once, twice, 3 times. He pulled it out and looked at the screen. 3 missed calls from Brenda. 2 text messages. The first text read, "Where did you go?" The second, "You're embarrassing me in front of everyone." Harry set the phone face down on the table and took another bite of his burger. He didn't feel guilty. He felt free. That night, Harry checked into a motel just outside the city. It was clean enough, standard chain accommodation with thin walls and a bathroom that smelled like industrial cleaner. He sat on the edge of the bed and stared at his phone. 17 missed calls now. 6 text messages. 1 voicemail. He listened to the voicemail on speaker, Brenda's voice filling the small room. "Harry, this is ridiculous. You can't just walk away from your own family reunion. People are asking questions. What am I supposed to tell them? Call me back. Now. Not, are you okay? Not, is something wrong? Just concern about appearances. About what people would think. Harry deleted the voicemail and opened his messages. He scrolled past Brenda's texts to find his sister's name. Mallory, 2 years younger than him, married to a carpenter, mother of 3. He typed, I'm fine. Don't worry. Her response came almost immediately. Thank God. Brenda is losing it. What happened? Harry stared at the message for a long moment. How did you summarize 15 years in a text? How did you explain that you'd finally had enough of being treated like an inconvenience in your own life? He typed, I just needed to leave. I'll explain later. 3 dots appeared, showing Mallory was typing. They disappeared, appeared again. Finally, a message came through. Okay, I'm here if you need me. Simple, direct, no judgment. Harry's throat tightened. When was the last time someone had offered support without conditions attached? He set the phone aside and lay back on the bed, staring at the textured ceiling. Tomorrow would bring complications. Brenda wouldn't let this go quietly. There would be conversations, confrontations, explanations demanded. But tonight, in this anonymous motel room, Harry allowed himself to simply breathe, to exist without performing, to be enough exactly as he was. The next morning, his phone rang while he was in the shower. By the time he got out, he had 3 new voicemails. He listened to them while getting dressed. The first was from his mother. Her voice carried that particular tone of forced calm that meant she was actually very upset. Harry, sweetheart, Brenda called me this morning. She's very worried. Can you please call her? Or call me? We just want to make sure you're all right. The second was from Brenda herself, and the tone had shifted from irritation to something sharper. You need to come home. This is childish. Whatever point you're trying to make, you've made it. Come home so we can talk about this like adults. The third was from Mallory, her voice low and urgent. Harry, listen. I just got off the phone with Mom. Brenda's telling everyone you had some kind of breakdown, that you've been under a lot of stress at work and just snapped. She's painting herself as the concerned wife. I thought you should know. Harry sat on the edge of the motel bed, phone in hand, and felt something cold settle in his chest. Of course Brenda would spin this. She'd make herself the victim, the devoted wife dealing with an unstable husband. She'd gather sympathy and support while positioning him as the problem. It was exactly what she'd been doing for years, just on a larger scale. He called Mallory back. She answered on the first ring. Are you okay? She asked immediately. I'm fine, Harry said. His voice sounded steadier than he felt. I'm in a motel. I'm safe. I just needed space. What happened yesterday? Really? Harry closed his eyes. She told me to step out of the family photo. Said my face was messing it up. Silence on the other end. Then quietly, Jesus, Harry. It wasn't just that, he continued. It was everything. 15 years of everything. I couldn't do it anymore. I get it, Mallory said. I've seen how she treats you. We all have. Then why didn't anyone say anything? Another pause. When Mallory spoke again, her voice was careful. Because it's complicated. Because marriage is private. Because Brenda's good at making it look like harmless teasing. And because... She trailed off. Because what? Because you seemed like you were okay with it. Like you'd accepted it. Harry's jaw tightened. I wasn't okay with it. I was surviving it. I know that now, Mallory said softly. What are you going to do? I don't know yet, but I'm not going back. Not to the house. Not to the way things were. She's going to fight you on this. Let her. Mallory was quiet for a moment. Then she said, good. It's about time you fought back. After they hung up, Harry sat in the silence of the motel room. His phone buzzed with another call. Brenda again, but he didn't answer. Instead, he opened his contacts and scrolled to a name he'd saved months ago, but never called. Robert Chun, divorce attorney. Harry had met him at a continuing education seminar for accountants and lawyers. They'd struck up a conversation over coffee during a break. Robert had given him his car with a wry smile. Just in case you ever need it. Nobody likes thinking they will, but life's unpredictable. Harry had kept the card. He'd told himself it was just good to have, just in case. Now he understood he'd been preparing for this moment for longer than he'd admitted. He dialed the number. By mid-afternoon, Harry had moved his belongings from the motel to his brother David's spare room. David had asked only 3 questions. Are you okay? Do you need help moving stuff? And beer or coffee? The spare room was small, barely large enough for a bed and a dresser, but it had a window that looked out onto David's backyard, where his kids played on a worn swing set. Harry unpacked his clothes into the dresser drawers and felt a strange sense of displacement. These were his things, but they'd always existed within the context of the house he'd shared with Brenda. His shirts had hung next to hers. His shoes had been lined up by the door she'd chosen. Even his books had sat on shelves she'd approved. Here, in David's spare room, they were just objects. Neutral. His alone. His phone rang again. This time, the caller ID showed his mother's name. He answered. Hi, Mom. Harry. Her voice was tight with worry. Please tell me what's going on. Brenda says you won't talk to her. She says you just disappeared. I left the reunion because I needed to. I'm staying with David for a while. But why? What happened? Brenda's beside herself. She thinks you're having some kind of crisis. Harry sat on the edge of the bed. Through the window, he could see David's youngest daughter pumping her legs on the swing, her hair flying behind her. Mom, can I ask you something? Of course. At the reunion, when Brenda told me to step out of the family photo, did you hear her? A pause. No, honey, I didn't. What do you mean? She told me to get out of the picture because my face was blocking someone. So I left. Another pause, longer this time. She said that. She's been saying things like that for 15 years. This was just the last time. His mother was quiet. Harry could hear her breathing, the soft catch that meant she was trying to process something uncomfortable. I didn't know, she said finally. I mean, I knew she could be particular, but I thought that was just her personality. Exacting. Type A. It's not exacting when it's only directed at one person, Mom. It's just mean. Harry, I'm not asking you to take sides. I just need you to understand that I didn't leave because I'm having a breakdown. I left because I was tired of being treated like I don't matter. His mother's voice cracked slightly. You matter. Of course you matter. Then trust me when I say this is what I need to do. There was a long silence. Then his mother said, Okay, if this is what you need, I'll support you. But Harry, yeah. Be careful. Brenda's not going to take this well. Harry almost laughed. I know. After he hung up, he sat in the quiet room and realized something had shifted. His mother hadn't demanded he go back, hadn't insisted he work it out. She'd actually listened. It was a small thing. But after 15 years of small cruelties, small kindnesses felt revolutionary. That evening, Mallory called. She's going nuclear, Mallory said without preamble. Brenda. She called Mom, Dad, Aunt Linda, and Uncle Pete. She's telling everyone you abandoned her, that you're unstable, that she's worried about your mental health. Harry leaned against David's kitchen counter. Through the wall, he could hear David's wife reading bedtime stories to the kids. Let her talk, he said. You're not worried? What's she going to say that isn't already a lie? She's saying you've been acting strange for months, that you've been distant and cold, that she's been trying to help you, but you won't accept it. Harry's grip tightened on the phone. That's Rich. I've been acting strange because I've been planning to leave. Wait, you've been planning this? Not the exact moment, but I've been getting ready, making sure everything was in order. What does that mean? Harry looked out the window at David's darkening backyard. It means I'm not going into this unprepared. I know exactly what I'm doing. Mallory was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Harry, I have to ask. Are you angry? Because you don't sound angry. I'm not angry, Harry said. And he realized it was true. I'm just done. That's scarier than anger. Good. After they hung up, Harry pulled out his laptop and opened a folder he'd created 6 months ago. It was labeled Property Records, innocuous enough that Brenda would never have questioned it if she'd stumbled across it. Inside were documents he'd been carefully collecting. Bank statements, credit card records, transaction histories. He'd noticed the first discrepancy almost 3 years ago. A withdrawal from their joint savings account that didn't match any purchase or bill they discussed. $500. Not enough to cause alarm, but enough to make him pay attention. He'd started watching after that. Over the next 3 years, he documented every unauthorized withdrawal, every unexplained charge. Every time Brenda had moved money from their joint accounts into her personal account without telling him. She'd been careful, never too much at once, always with plausible explanations if he questioned her. Gifts for her parents, emergency car repairs, necessary home improvements that couldn't wait. But Harry was an accountant. Numbers told stories. And the story these numbers told was simple. Brenda had been systematically siphoning money from their shared finances while maintaining the appearance of a devoted, financially responsible wife. He'd never confronted her about it. Instead, he'd documented everything, organized it, made it irrefutable, and waited. Now, sitting in David's spare room, Harry opened a new document and began drafting an email to Robert Shun. He attached the financial records, explained the situation, requested a meeting. By the time he finished, it was nearly midnight. He sent the email and closed his laptop. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. But tonight, for the second night in a row, Harry Voss slept better than he had in years. The meeting with Robert Shun happened on a Tuesday afternoon in a downtown office with minimal furniture and maximum efficiency. Robert was in his mid-40s, with silver-rimmed glasses and the kind of calm demeanor that came from seeing every variation of human dissolution. "I've reviewed the documents you sent," Robert said, sliding a folder across his desk. "This is extensive documentation. How long have you been compiling this?" 3 years, Harry said, "since I first noticed money moving into her private account." Robert nodded slowly. "And you never confronted her about it?" "No. Why not?" Harry looked at his hands. They were steady. "Because I knew if I confronted her, she'd have an explanation. She made me feel like I was being paranoid or controlling. She'd turn it around somehow. So I just watched and documented. That took discipline. It took not wanting to be wrong." Robert leaned back in his chair. "The good news is this documentation is solid. Bank records, transaction dates, clear patterns of unauthorized transfers. In terms of asset division, this strengthens your position significantly. What's the bad news? The bad news is that divorce is still messy, even with clear evidence. Your wife will likely contest everything, make accusations, try to paint you as the aggressor." Robert paused. "From what you've told me about her behavior, she's going to fight dirty." Harry met his eyes. "I'm ready for that. Are you?" "Because it's one thing to prepare documents in private. It's another to sit across from her while she tears you apart in front of a mediator." "She's been tearing me apart for 15 years, Harry said quietly. "The only difference now is I'm not going to pretend it isn't happening." Robert studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "All right, let's talk strategy." They spent the next 2 hours going through details. Asset division, the house, retirement accounts, Brenda's separate account that she'd been hiding, the joint accounts that Harry had already frozen the morning after he left. A move Robert approved of with a slight smile. "You moved fast on the accounts," Robert noted. "I wanted to make sure she couldn't drain them the moment she realized I was serious." "Smart. Though I expect that's when things started getting explosive on her end." Harry thought about his phone, which had 53 unread messages for Brenda. He'd stopped reading them after the first dozen. They'd progressed from confusion to anger to threats to pleading and back to anger again. "She's been vocal," Harry said. "They usually are. My advice? Don't engage. Don't respond to texts or calls unless they're about specific logistics through me. The more you stay silent, the less ammunition she has." "What about my family?" Robert's expression softened slightly. "That's harder. She's going to try to control the narrative. Tell them her version before you can tell yours. Some people will believe her. Some won't. All you can do is be consistent and let the facts speak for themselves." Harry nodded. He'd already experienced the first wave of this. His mother's worried calls, cousins reaching out with concerns, friends of Brenda's sending carefully worded messages about how worried everyone was. Mallory had been his anchor through it. She'd been fielding calls, quietly correcting Brenda's narrative where she could, reminding people that they didn't know the whole story. But Harry knew it would get worse before it got better. "One more thing," Robert said, pulling out another document. "I'm going to file the divorce petition this week. Once that's official, Brenda will receive the papers. That's when reality is going to hit her. Be prepared for escalation." "What kind of escalation?" "Anger. Possibly bargaining. Definitely blame. She's going to try everything she can to regain control of the situation. Robert met his eyes. The question is, are you going to give it to her? Harry thought about standing on that dock, being told to step out of the picture. He thought about 15 years of being made to feel small. He thought about the relief he'd felt driving away. No, he said, I'm not. The papers were served on Thursday. Harry wasn't there when it happened, but Mallory called him immediately afterward. She'd been at the grocery store when she'd run into Brenda's best friend, Catherine, who'd apparently been on the phone with Brenda when the process server arrived. She's losing it, Mallory said. Catherine said Brenda called her screaming. Something about you humiliating her and ruining her life. Harry was at David's kitchen table, organizing financial records for his accountant. She actually said, I'm ruining her life? Apparently. She's telling people you blindsided her, that you never said anything was wrong and just served her papers out of nowhere. Harry set down his pen. That's not true. I know it's not true, but that's the story she's selling. Did she mention the bank accounts? Catherine didn't say, but I'm guessing that's part of why she's so angry. She probably tried to access money and found out you'd frozen everything. Harry had frozen their joint accounts the day he left. It was a calculated move, one Robert had later praised as tactically sound. Brenda could still access her personal accounts, of course, the ones she'd been moving money into for years. But the joint accounts, which held the majority of their shared assets, were locked down tight pending the divorce proceedings. She'll have access to her own money, Harry said. The money she's been hiding. Yeah, but that's probably not enough for whatever lifestyle she's been living. Harry thought about the credit card statements he'd been reviewing. Brenda had expensive tastes, designer clothes, frequent spa visits, dinners at restaurants that cost more than his weekly grocery budget. She'd always justified it as taking care of herself and maintaining appearances. He'd never argued, just quietly paid the bills and made sure they didn't go into debt. Now, those bills were her problem. Let her figure it out, Harry said. You're really not going to engage, are you? Robert said not to. And honestly, Harry leaned back in his chair. I don't want to. I'm tired of talking to her. Mallory was quiet for a moment. You sound different. Different how? Calmer. Like you've made peace with something. Harry looked around David's kitchen. It was cluttered with kids' artwork and school notices and the comfortable chaos of a family that actually functioned. It wasn't his kitchen, but it was peaceful. I have, he said. I made peace with the fact that I don't have to fix this. I just have to end it. Brenda's first direct attempt at contact came 3 days later. Harry was at work when his phone lit up with her number. It let go to voicemail. She called again immediately. Then again. On the fourth call, his coworker Brandon raised an eyebrow. You gonna get that? No, Harry said, silencing his phone. At lunch, he listened to the voicemails in his car. The first one was cold. We need to talk. Call me back. The second was sharper. I know you're getting these messages. This is childish. The third was different. Her voice cracked slightly, like she'd been crying. Harry, please. Can we just talk? Like adults? I don't understand why you're doing this. The fourth message started with silence. Then, quietly, I know you're angry. I get it, but we can fix this. We can go to counseling. Work through whatever's going on. Please don't throw away 15 years over one bad moment. Harry deleted all 4 messages and ate his sandwich in silence. One bad moment. That was how she was framing it. As if 15 years of systematic degradation could be reduced to a single incident that he was overreacting to. His phone buzzed with a text. Not from Brenda, from his mother. Brenda came by the house today. She's very upset. She says you won't talk to her. Can you at least hear her out? Harry's jaw tightened. Of course, Brenda had gone to his mother. She was building her coalition, gathering sympathy, positioning herself as the abandoned wife, trying desperately to save her marriage. He typed back, I have a lawyer. All communication goes through him now. His mother's response came quickly. Is that really necessary? Can't you two sit down and talk? Harry stared at the message. His mother meant well. She always had. But she didn't understand that sitting down to talk with Brenda meant giving her an opening. A chance to manipulate, to twist, to make him doubt himself again. He'd spent 15 years sitting down to talk. It had gotten him nowhere except smaller. He typed, yes, it's necessary. I'm sorry, but I'm not changing my mind. His mother didn't respond. Harry finished his sandwich and went back to work. His phone stayed silent for the rest of the afternoon. But when he got back to David's house that evening, there was a car parked in the driveway that didn't belong to David or his wife. His stomach sank when he saw who was sitting in the driver's seat. Brenda. She got out as he pulled in, her expression a careful mixture of hurt and determination. She'd dressed up, not overdressed, but deliberately put together in a way that suggested she'd been preparing for this confrontation. Harry parked and got out slowly. David appeared in the doorway of the house, clearly uncertain whether to intervene. "I'll handle it," Harry called to him. David nodded and went back inside, though Harry could see him watching through the window. Brenda approached, stopping a few feet away. Up close, he could see she'd been crying. Her eyes were red, her makeup slightly smudged. "We need to talk," she said. "Through lawyers," Harry replied. "Don't be like that. Please, just give me 5 minutes." "No. Harry, this is insane. You can't just walk away from 15 years of marriage without even talking to me." "I can," Harry said quietly. "And I am." "What?" Her voice broke. "What did I do that was so terrible? So I told you to step out of photo. Is that worth ending our marriage over?" Harry looked at her, really looked at her, at the woman he'd loved for 15 years. The woman who'd made him laugh in their first year together, who'd held his hand at his father's funeral, who'd built a life with him that looked perfect from the outside. And he saw, clearly now, that the person standing in front of him had never seen him at all. Just an idea of him, a role he was supposed to fill. "It's not about the photo," he said. "It's about every time you made me feel like I wasn't enough. Every time you corrected me in front of people. Every time you apologized for me. Every time you told me I was too sensitive when I said something hurt. I was trying to help you." "No," Harry interrupted. "You were trying to control me. There's a difference." Brenda's expression shifted. The hurt faded slightly, replaced by something harder. "I made you better. You were awkward and socially clueless when we met. I taught you how to present yourself, how to be someone people respect. You taught me how to be quiet, how to disappear, how to apologize for existing. That's not fair, isn't it?" Harry felt his composure holding, solid as bedrock. "When was the last time you asked me what I wanted? What I thought? When was the last time my opinion mattered as much as yours?" Brenda opened her mouth, then closed it. For the first time in years, she seemed at a loss for words. "That's what I thought," Harry said. He turned toward the house. "Wait." Her voice was sharp now, desperate. "You don't get to do this. You don't get to just walk away and act like you're the victim here. I gave you everything. I built a life for us. I made sacrifices." Harry turned back. "What sacrifices?" "I stayed home when I could have worked. I took care of your family. I hosted every holiday, every party, every gathering. I maintained our home, our reputation, our social life. What did you do?" The question hung in the air. Harry felt something cold and precise settle in his chest. This was it, the moment he'd been preparing for. "I paid for it," he said quietly. "All of it. Every sacrifice you claim to have made, I funded." Brenda's eyes narrowed. "That's what husbands do. And wives." Harry pulled out his phone and opened a file, one of many he'd prepared for exactly this moment. Do wives systematically move money into private accounts without telling their husbands? Her face changed. The color drained slightly. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the $43,000 you've moved into your personal account over the last 3 years. Small amounts. Careful amounts. Amounts I wasn't supposed to notice." Brenda's mouth opened, but no sound came out. "I noticed the first transfer 2 months after it started," Harry continued. $500. Then another the next month. Then more. I documented all of it. Bank records. Dates. Amounts. That money was for her. For what? Emergency car repairs that never happened? Home improvements you never mentioned? Or maybe just for yourself, because you decided you were entitled to it." Brenda's expression hardened. "You're my husband. What's yours is mine. That's how marriage works." "What's ours is ours," Harry corrected. "What's mine is mine. And what's yours is yours. You had no right to take money without discussion. This is why you left." She laughed, but sounded forced. "Because I spent some money? You're pathetic." "I left because you made me feel worthless," Harry said. The money is just evidence that you thought I was too stupid to notice. I never thought you were stupid. No, you thought I was controllable, manageable, someone who would just accept whatever you did because I was too weak to push back. Brenda's jaw tightened. You're making a huge mistake. If you go through with this, you're going to regret it. I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are. Go ahead, Harry said. Tell them. Tell them how your husband documented your financial deception for 3 years. Tell them how you treated him like he was an inconvenience in his own life. Tell them whatever story you want. The truth is on my side. He turned and walked toward the house. This time, she didn't call after him. David was waiting inside, his expression concerned. You okay? Harry leaned against the closed door. His hands were shaking slightly, adrenaline finally catching up to him. Yeah, he said. I am. She looked pretty rattled. Good. Through the window, they watched Brenda get into her car. She sat there for a long moment, hands gripping the steering wheel, before starting the engine and pulling away. David clapped Harry on the shoulder. Beer. Yeah, beer sounds good. They sat in the backyard while David's kids played, and Harry felt something shift inside him. Not triumph, not victory, just the quiet satisfaction of standing his ground. The fallout spread through the family like ripples in water. Harry's mother called the next day, her voice carefully neutral. Brenda says you accused her of stealing money. I didn't accuse her. I showed her the documentation. A pause. Is it true? Yes. Another pause, longer this time. Harry, I'm trying to understand. Why didn't you tell anyone this was happening? Because I needed to be sure, and because I knew she'd deny it or make it seem justified somehow. His mother was quiet. Then softly, I believe you. The words hit harder than Harry expected. He'd been preparing for doubt, for pushback, for demands that he give Brenda another chance. Thank you, he managed. I'm sorry, his mother said. I'm sorry I didn't see what was happening. I thought she was just strong-willed. Type A. I didn't realize she was hurting you. It's okay, Mom. It's not, but we'll make it okay. Whatever you need. After they hung up, Harry sat in the quiet of David's spare room and felt something loosen in his chest. He hadn't realized how much he needed his mother to believe him. Mallory called an hour later with an update. Brenda's parents called Mom, and they wanted to know if it's true about the money. Mom told them to talk to you directly if they want answers. Are they going to? Probably not. They're embarrassed. From what Mom said, they had no idea Brenda was doing that. Harry thought about Brenda's parents, Gerald and Patricia. They'd always been kind to him, polite, pleasant, but they'd also raised Brenda to believe she deserved the world on a silver platter. How's Brenda taking it? Harry asked. According to Catherine, who's still in contact with her, she's furious, saying you're vindictive and cruel, that you're destroying her reputation. I'm just telling the truth. I know, but the truth isn't kind to her, so she's going to fight it. Let her fight. Mallory laughed softly. You really have changed. No, Harry said. I just stopped pretending. The shift in family dynamics became clearer over the next few weeks. Brenda's version of events, that Harry had abandoned her without warning, that he was being irrational and cruel, started to crumble as more people learned the details. Her brother, Michael, returned Harry's tools without comment. They'd been expensive tools, ones Harry had lent him 2 years ago and never gotten back. He dropped them off at David's house with a simple note, sorry, should have done this sooner. Friends stopped inviting Brenda to gatherings, not because Harry asked them to, but because the truth made social interaction awkward. What do you say to someone who's been quietly exposed as a financial manipulator? Even Catherine, Brenda's best friend, started distancing herself. Mallory heard through the grapevine that Catherine had confronted Brenda about the money, and Brenda had responded by cutting her off completely. She's isolating herself, Mallory observed during one of their weekly phone calls. The more people question her, the more she pushes them away. That's her choice, Harry said. Do you feel bad about it? Harry considered the question. Did he feel bad that his ex-wife was losing friends and support because her own behavior had caught up with her? No, he said finally. I feel relieved that people are seeing what I saw. The divorce proceedings moved forward with mechanical efficiency. Robert handled the legal aspects with calm professionalism, and Harry provided every document requested. bank statements, tax returns, property records, communication logs. Brenda hired a lawyer, an aggressive one who tried to paint Harry as controlling and financially abusive for freezing the joint accounts. Robert dismantled that argument in one brief, citing the documented evidence of Brenda's unauthorized transfers. Your client moved $43,000 into a private account without her husband's knowledge or consent, Robert wrote in the response. Mr. Voss's action to freeze joint assets was a reasonable protection measure, not financial abuse. Brenda's lawyer tried a different angle, claiming Harry had emotionally abandoned his wife and was using the divorce as punishment. Robert's response was equally measured. Mr. Voss removed himself from a harmful situation. Ms. Voss's characterization of this as abandonment is both inaccurate and manipulative. Harry read the legal filings with a strange sense of detachment. These were his 15 years of marriage, reduced to legal arguments and asset divisions. It should have hurt more than it did. Instead, it felt like watching a surgeon remove something that had been slowly poisoning him. Clean, necessary, final. 6 months after Harry left, the divorce was finalized. The settlement was fair by legal standards and devastating by Brenda's. The house was sold, proceeds split evenly. Retirement accounts divided. The $43,000 in Brenda's private account was offset against her share of the joint assets, meaning she effectively got less than half. Robert called it poetic justice. Harry called it closure. On the day the papers were signed, Harry stood in the parking lot of the courthouse and felt nothing. No anger. No sadness, no lingering attachment to the life he'd left behind. Just the quiet certainty that he'd done the right thing. Mallory had offered to come with him for moral support, but he declined. This was something he needed to do alone. To face alone. To finish alone. He drove back to David's house, where he'd been living for half a year. David had insisted he stay as long as he needed, but Harry had already started looking at apartments. Small places. Affordable. His own. That evening, David's wife, Jennifer, made dinner. It was a simple meal, pasta with marinara, garlic bread, salad, but it was made with care. The kids chattered about their day at school. David told a story about a difficult client. Jennifer laughed at his delivery. Harry sat at the table and absorbed it. This was what family was supposed to feel like. Easy, warm, uncomplicated. You're quiet tonight, Jennifer observed. Everything okay? Yeah, Harry said. Actually, everything's fine. The divorce is final. David raised his beer. To new beginnings. They clinked glasses, and Harry felt something settle in his chest. A sense of rightness. Of having finally, after years of bending, stood up straight. 3 months after the divorce, Harry signed a lease on a 1-bedroom apartment downtown. It wasn't large, but it had good light and a balcony that overlooked the river. He furnished it slowly, carefully, choosing each piece himself without anyone's input or approval. A sturdy couch in deep blue. A coffee table made of reclaimed wood. Bookshelves that he filled with books he'd always wanted to read, but never had time for. The apartment didn't look like a magazine spread. It looked like him. On a Saturday morning in October, Mallory helped him hang pictures in the living room. They weren't family photos. He'd left most of those behind. Instead, they were images he'd collected over the months. A landscape from a hiking trip he'd taken alone, a vintage poster of a national park he wanted to visit, a black and white photograph of an old train station. This place suits you, Mallory said, stepping back to examine their work. Yeah, it feels honest. Harry smiled. That's a good word for it. Mallory sat on the couch, accepting the coffee he handed her. Have you heard anything about Brenda? No. Why? I ran into Catherine at the store last week. She said Brenda's been struggling. Harry waited. Apparently, she had to move back in with her parents. Couldn't afford to live alone on what she got from the divorce. Harry absorbed this information. A year ago, he might have felt guilty, might have second-guessed his choices. Now he just felt neutral. That's unfortunate, he said. Is it weird that I don't feel bad for her? Mallory asked. No. She made her choices. These are the consequences. Do you think she's learned anything? Harry considered this. Probably not. People like Brenda don't think they're wrong. They think the world is wrong for not seeing things their way. Mallory nodded slowly. You're probably right. They sat in comfortable silence, drinking coffee and watching the river flow past below. The next family reunion at Clearwater Lake happened the following July. Harry almost didn't go. The memories of the previous year were still sharp, standing at that dock, being told to step out of the frame, feeling the weight of 15 years of small humiliations. But Mallory convinced him. You can't let her win by making you avoid your own family, she said. Besides, she won't be there. You're sure? Positive. Mom didn't invite her, so it would be too awkward. So Harry went. He drove to the lake on a Saturday morning, windows down, music playing. The same route he'd driven in shame and anger the year before. But this time, everything felt different, lighter. When he arrived, his mother hugged him tight. I'm glad you came. Me too. The reunion unfolded with its familiar rhythm. Food on picnic tables, kids running around, adults catching up on a year's worth of life. But the dynamic had shifted. People approached Harry differently now, not with pity or awkwardness, but with something closer to respect. His Uncle Pete clapped him on the shoulder. Good to see you looking well. His cousin Maria said, I'm proud of you for getting out of that situation. Even people who'd initially sided with Brenda, who'd believed her version of events, treated him with a new, careful courtesy. They'd learned the truth, seen the documentation, understood what had really happened, and they'd had to adjust their perceptions. When it came time for the family photo, Harry felt his stomach tighten. Same doc, same photographer, same setup. But when people started arranging themselves, something different happened. His mother waved him forward. Harry, come up to the second row. He hesitated. Come on, Mallory said, grabbing his arm. Front and center. David appeared on his other side. Yeah, no hiding the back this year. They pulled him into position, sandwiching him between them. His mother stood in front, slightly to the side. His nieces and nephews knelt on the dock. The photographer counted down. 1, 2, 3. The camera clicked. No one told him to move. No one suggested his face was blocking anyone. He stayed exactly where he was. After the photo, Harry walked down to the water's edge. The lake was calm, reflecting the afternoon sky in perfect mirror image. He stood with his hands in his pockets, breathing in the familiar scent of pine and water. Footsteps approached behind him. He turned to find his mother. Can we talk? She asked. Of course. They walked along the shore in silence for a moment. Then his mother said, I owe you an apology. Mom, no, let me say this. She stopped walking and turned to face him. I should have seen what was happening. I should have noticed how she treated you. How small you become. You didn't know. I should have. You're my son. I should have paid more attention. Her eyes were bright with unshed tears. I'm sorry. Harry hugged her. It's okay. Really. What matters is that you believed me when it counted. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. Are you happy now? Really happy? Harry thought about his apartment, his quiet mornings, the absence of criticism and correction. Yeah, he said. I am. Good. That's all I want for you. They walked back to the reunion together. As they approached, Harry saw the family gathered around the picnic tables, laughing and talking. His family, still complicated, still imperfect, but his without conditions. 6 months later, Harry was at a coffee shop near his apartment when his phone buzzed with an unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Hello. Harry. The voice was familiar. Too familiar. Brenda. A pause. Can we talk? We have nothing to talk about. Please. Just 5 minutes. I need to say something. Harry should have hung up, but curiosity, or maybe something else, made him stay on the line. Fine. 5 minutes. He heard her take a breath. When she spoke, her voice was different than he remembered. Smaller. Uncertain. I've been thinking about everything that happened, she said. About us. About how things ended. Harry waited. I didn't mean it, she continued. The way I treated you. I was stressed all the time. The family stuff, the social obligations, trying to maintain everything. I took it out on you. That's not an apology, Harry said. I know. I'm trying to. She trailed off. I miss you. You miss having someone to control. That's not fair, isn't it? Harry's voice was calm, level. You didn't miss me when I was there. You miss what I provided. Stability. Someone to manage the practical stuff while you focused on appearances. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. Silence on the other end. Then, quietly, I'm struggling, Harry. I can't afford to live on my own. My parents are. They're disappointed in me. My friends don't talk to me anymore. I have no one. That's not my problem. We were married for 15 years. Doesn't that mean anything? Harry looked out the coffee shop window at people passing by. Strangers living their lives. Moving forward. Leaving things behind. It used to, he said. But you destroyed that. Little by little. Year by year. And now it's gone. Can't we at least try to be friends? No. Why not? Because I don't forgive people who tried to erase me. Brenda's voice cracked. I never tried to erase you. Yes, Harry said quietly. You did. Every time you told me to be quieter, to take up less space, to step out of the picture. You were trying to make me disappear. I didn't think. I know. You didn't think about how it affected me. You only thought about yourself. And that's why we can't be friends. That's why there's no coming back. Harry, I'm hanging up now. Don't call this number again. He ended the call and set his phone on the table. His coffee had gone lukewarm, but he drank it anyway. Outside, the city moved on. Cars passed. People walked. Life continued. And Harry Voss, for the first time in 15 years, was exactly where he wanted to be. Another year passed. Harry got a promotion at work, recognition for the meticulous documentation skills that had always been his strength. He started hiking on weekends, reclaiming the hobby he'd abandoned because Brenda thought it was boring. He made new friends. Not many, but good ones. He dated occasionally, though nothing serious. He was in no rush. He'd learned that being alone was infinitely better than being with someone who made you feel small. The second reunion at Clearwater Lake after his divorce felt almost normal. He arrived early, helped his mother set up, played with his nieces and nephews in the water. When the time came for the family photo, he stood in the second row again, right in the middle. The photographer, a different one this year, counted down. Harry stood still, comfortable, present. The camera clicked. Later, when his mother shared the digital photos with everyone, Harry looked at the image for a long time. There he was, visible, smiling, taking up space without apology. It was just a photo, but it represented everything he'd fought for, everything he'd reclaimed. He saved the image and set it as his phone background, not as a reminder of what he'd lost, but as proof of what he'd gained. On a quiet evening in late September, Harry sat on his balcony with a book and a cup of tea. The river flowed below, reflecting the orange and pink of sunset. The air was cool, touched with the first hint of autumn. His phone buzzed with a message from Mallory. Ran into Mom's friend at church. She said Brenda got engaged. Some guy she met online, moving to Arizona with him. Harry read the message twice. He waited for some feeling to surface. Anger, regret, jealousy, even relief. Instead, he felt nothing. Brenda's life had moved on. So had his. They were separate now. Completely. Finally, he typed back. Good for her. Hope she treats him better than she treated me. Mallory's response was immediate. You don't mean that. Harry smiled. No, but I'm trying to be generous. Fair enough. Love you, brother. Love you too. Harry set his phone aside and returned to his book. The story was good, a mystery that kept him guessing. He'd bought it last week from a local bookstore, choosing it himself without anyone's input. Small choices, small freedoms. They added up. By the time the sun had fully set and the streetlights flickered on below, Harry had finished 3 chapters. He marked his place, went inside, and made dinner. Just for himself. Exactly what he wanted. As he ate, he thought about karma. The popular understanding of it. What goes around comes around. Do bad things happen to you. But karma wasn't really about revenge or punishment. It was about consequences. Natural, inevitable consequences. Brenda had spent 15 years treating him like he didn't matter. And now she lived in a world where she'd lost the support of friends, family, and the one person who'd been quietly keeping her life running smoothly. She hadn't been destroyed. She'd been left with exactly what she'd built. A life based on appearances and control, with no foundation underneath. While Harry had built something different. Something quiet. Something real. Something that was entirely his own. That was the karma. Not punishment. Just truth. finally catching up. Years later, when people asked Harry about his divorce, he kept his answer simple. It needed to happen, he'd say. We weren't good for each other. He never went into details, never spoke badly about Brenda, never shared the full story unless someone specifically asked. But those who knew him, really knew him, could see the difference. The way he held himself, the confidence in his voice, the absence of that constant, low-level anxiety that used to follow him everywhere. He'd learned something important, that walking away from cruelty wasn't weakness. It was the strongest thing he'd ever done. And he'd never, not for a single moment, regretted it. The photo from that second reunion still hung in Harry's apartment, framed and centered on his living room wall. Not because it was a perfect picture, but because it captured something true. A man who'd spent 15 years disappearing, finally visible again, standing exactly where he belonged, taking up space without apology, and refusing to ever step back again.